Welcome back, monkeys. I'm Scott Pyburn.
Hey, and I'm Dom DeBellis.
Today and this is Caleb King. Go ahead.
I'm going to introduce myself too, since you guys got to hold the mug up and do the whole deal. So I've got to do it too. Sorry.
This is Caleb King. He's our special guest today for a very special episode of Monkeys Drinking Beans. Today we're going to be talking to Caleb about what it's like to be a working professional creative and struggling to do what he does. So I'm an idiot. I need to bring up my production notes.
Type.
Yes, take two. Take two. All right, let's roll back. So essentially...
And Caleb's got his coffee this morning. What kind of coffee you got there, Caleb?
I'm drinking something called the Bright Sky Blend. It's some Starbucks thing. It's a nice, mild, light roast with a little nutty edge to it. It's quite delicious.
Excellent.
So I need more caffeine, and so the lighter roasts have more caffeine. So
excellent.
Very nice.
Very nice. Yeah, I have personally, I've got an Einstein's blend that my wife brought home from work. So they got some Einstein's behind the scenes coffee in the silver packages, not for resale. So she brought some of that home. So that's what I'm drinking today.
Nice.
I just have Folgers. What can I say?
Hey, it's the best part of waking up.
Yeah, exactly. You read my
Clearly,
mind.
I mean.
And actually today I'm cheating because I'm taking airborne tablets to try to stave off this cold.
Not
So
in
I'm
your
not
coffee.
taking coffee because I'm trying to stay hydrated.
Yeah. It's going around. My wife is sick. My daughter's coming down sick. I've got a little tickle. It's like, oh great, here comes the plague.
No, I'm good. I'm glad I'm just talking with you guys over the internet.
Yeah.
Step away from the camera. Back up a little bit because we don't want to make Caleb sick.
I've got a sneeze guard up, all right? I'm just telling you.
Awesome. So, Caleb, we want to talk to you today about you're a professional illustrator and writer and musician, and wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of how you made the transition. I went to school with you. Our viewers don't know this. Caleb and I went to the American Academy of Art together. Caleb graduated. I didn't. Long story for another show.
There's lots of people that we went to school with who never made that. That journey. So
and there's a few that are extremely successful. I mean, Jason Seiler is one I know. He basically was like, I don't need this anymore. I'm doing covers for Time magazine.
Right. Yeah, that usually tells you something.
Yeah. But we wanted to get into Dom and I are both creatives. I'm an artist as well. I'm struggling to get back into the field, as you and I have had that conversation before, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about first about organizing yourself as a business professional. I know when you and I had coffee, and I came down to visit, talk to you about being on the show, you showed me some of your things, like some of your forms that you've created on sheets, and wanted to get into discuss a little bit about going from just being at the table creating artwork to doing the business side.
Sure. I think for me, it's always been about the end result of all of the work that I do is to get the art in people's hands. Seeing it on the internet is great, but for me, it still goes back to am I putting this on my wall, or is it going in a collection book somewhere? Right. A lot of people will bring you sketchbooks of theirs that they've like, I've got a Batman themed sketchbook. Can you draw on it for me?
Right.
And you're one of the artists amongst a pantheon of great artists in these books, and you at first feel intimidated by it, right? But you do your work, and you hope that you're better than the guy who comes after you, or just at least as good, so you're not the one weak link in the whole book, right? But I digress. But the idea is to have your work in the hands of other people.
Yeah.
And so how do I do that, right? Is you're sitting there like drawing your picture, and you've got a Daredevil or a Wonder Woman or whatever you're drawing. You ask yourself, how do I get this in their hands? Do I create a website? Do I Do I make a Facebook page? Do I have an Instagram? And those are the immediate things that anyone can do, because there's free websites everywhere. The Instagram is free. It doesn't cost anything, right? So all it takes is some guts to be able to put yourself out there and show your work, and hope nobody trolls you and tells you, Wonder Woman looks more like Wonder Man, that kind of stuff. But it's really harmless to do that. So get your stuff out there is the first step.
Yeah, I think it's really important to put yourself out there. I'm struggling to relearn to draw. I've been away from it for a long time. So, and you've seen some of my stuff. It's not where I want it to be. But I read a great book by Austin Kleon called "Show Your Work."
Sure.
He's got another book called "Steal Like an Artist," where he says, "Don't wait until it's perfect to put it out there. Just put it out there and get feedback." You're going to get some trolls. You're going to get some people who are, like you say, oh, that's Wonder Man, not Wonder Woman. But you got to take criticism if you're going to be a professional in any field. Yeah,
that's one of the big things that you have to learn is, I used to have this phobia, not really phobia. It was more just like a hesitation, a strong hesitation. I didn't like drawing in public because I felt like people would stare. And then
I do the same thing. I go to the mall and I sit at the food court and I'm like, don't look at me.
Don't look. I'm making art. Stop looking. No,
I'm hideous.
Yeah, right. I think what it was for me was this idea that here I am just in my head doodling, and as soon as somebody starts looking, now there's judgment and there's expectations, and then suddenly I didn't feel like I could adequately cope with that pressure at first, and so I would draw at home. And I would go out, and I would always still carry my sketchbook with me, but I'd be sitting at a bookstore having a cup of coffee or reading a magazine or something and want to doodle, and I'd pull it out, and then I would just not do anything because I didn't like that concept of people looking.
Yeah.
But really, that was more about my insecurities than it was about the work. And I just had to toughen up. I just had to be like, you know what? It's okay if people look. Because most people are going to look at it and think, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I can't draw. Or you'll get somebody who likes comics or pop culture stuff, and they'll want to like, "Oh, cool. What's this? Oh, do you draw?" And pretty soon it starts a conversation, and then life is then better because you've interacted with people over something you mutually like, and I think that's 90% of what Comic-Cons are about anyways, is meeting with people who like the same things you like,
Yeah, excellent.
And so you just have to go from that moment where you're afraid to show your work, whether you're live drawing or you're drawing it at home and putting it on the internet. And so that the next logical step then is to go, all right, now I need to create a body of work that I can take and sell somewhere. Like, is that an art show? Is that a Comic-Con? Is that where else can I go to sell this stuff? Because as cool as the internet is, it still doesn't really, for a startup artist, it still doesn't generate money.
Right.
You're not going to be sitting there on Instagram and somebody goes, "Hot damn, look at that whatever piece that is. I'm gonna go buy it right now." I mean, how many of us have ever done that? It's like so small of a percentage of people. So, yeah.
And Dom,
you have to go.
That Dom wanted to ask you about. That brings us to our next question. That you were saying, how do you sell your art? Dom, ask Caleb a little bit about what we were talking about earlier, as far as how do you get clients?
Well, yeah, I just, I'm just wondering how do you get clients? Because, I'm not going to be shy about asking you this, because I know you've lined up some really great work for recently. The Walking Dead project, the Jedi project. You want to talk about that a little bit, or
Sure.
Are you at liberty to talk about that?
I can talk. I'll talk about what I can't talk about.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to step on it.
No, I appreciate that.
Tell us you met Lucas. No.
Right. No, I have not met him.
That's how Caleb got arrested at Skywalker Ranch.
Right. I mean, that's how I really got the job. I was breaking in to see The Last Jedi before it aired. We've all seen Fanboys.
Yes. Yeah.
So, not quite a year ago, I was really looking for the next thing for myself, and that's something that I think about a lot. And like, what's the next step? I could sit here and just draw and make paintings for myself, or just to sell at a Comic-Con forever. There are artists who will they keep making new work, and it's still great, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And they still travel the Comic-Con circuit and sell, and they will do it until they die, I suppose.
And a lot of them are making a killing doing it too.
Sure, yeah. So there's good money in it, and so I can continue to do that because I've been fairly successful at that for the last couple of years. I've been doing it for a while. I think I started doing it, like really going after it in 2012. So it's only been 5 years of that circuit. But I had been exhibiting as far back as 2008, but just like one show a year. And it took me a while to build up the courage and the gumption to just kind of go for it. Because it costs money. It costs money to go do that. You know, you got table fees at each of the conventions. It's not like they invite you and give you a sweet table and they're like, hey, come on into the show. It's like more like, how do I get into the show? Well, do you have money? I do. Well, give it to us and we'll give you a spot to sell your work. And, and you know, there are shows that are not fairly non-discriminatory as far as like they don't have. There's no real application. It's just a contact form and how much the table costs. Yeah. So you pay your money and it's like, bam, now you're in the show. And for a lot of people, that right there makes them feel like amazing. They're like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm in Comic-Con now. And it's like, well, yeah, you and your brother and his friend and, you know, everybody.
Yeah. And the pizza vendor.
Yes. Even he has to pay to get in, right?
Yeah.
But then you've got other, you know, shows that are more like you submit a like pretty detailed application. Here's who have you worked for? What publishers have you worked for? Check them off this list.
Right.
When was the last time you had published work? Do you have a website? Do you run a webcomic? Do you write one? Do you know, check all of the boxes that you consider yourself: pencil, inker, artist, editor, letterer, colorist, you know, all these things. Give us your website. You have to have a link to an image on a website or they don't even consider you, because again, it's like a bare minimum. You should be, if you're trying to exhibit at Comic-Con, you should have a website. This is a no-brainer, right? So it forces you to get organized.
Yes.
To jump through all of these hoops that say, yes, I am attempting to be a professional. You know, because it's like a business card. Nobody really cares that you have a business card as long as you have one, because it shows that you're organized enough to play ball. You know, to have the universal sign that I am working and I'm a professional. You know,
do you really belong here?
Yeah.
Right.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was through those connections. I guess I'm taking the long roundabout way to say, you know, how did I get some of those gigs? Being at these shows for the last 5 years, you meet a lot of people, and you're challenged constantly to grow because you see the level of work around you, and it forces you to rise to the challenge. You can self-evaluation without judgment of others' work, right? You look around and you go, okay, my work is standing out here, because you look at what's around you and you're like, okay, am I like everybody else around me? Am I doing the same thing that everybody else is doing? We're all in the Comic-Con world, so all of us are, you know, doing some kind of fan art at some point, or at least most of us are. Yes. I think if you tried to get rid of fan art at a Comic-Con, you'd be closing down, you know, 98% of the artist alley. So, which is, you know, an issue for another time.
Well, actually, we're going to talk about that a little bit briefly.
Sure. But, yeah, briefly here then, you've got... You've just got to basically say to yourself, I'm here to sell my work. I'm here to meet people. I'm here to network. And if you could do that and continue to do it with regularity, whether it's once a month or 3 times a year, you know, whatever it is, you just need to be getting out there. The more you do these things, the better the chance that you'll grow. You'll be producing new work for these shows on some kind of a regular basis. So you'll be drawing more out of necessity. You need to have new things to bring to these shows. If you've got the same 3 prints at every show, what's the purpose in seeing you the next year?
Right.
So you need to keep growing and keep producing new work. And so I think I've produced over, since January this year alone, I think I've produced nearly 250 new pieces of work.
Wow.
And that's, we're counting sketch cards here, right?
Of course.
I've holy cow, that would be amazing. But that's a lot of pieces of work.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And not to mention any sketching I've done in a sketchbook or whatnot. So suffice it to say, Dom, your question, how did I get these contacts and stuff? A lot of them come through meeting people at conventions or hanging out and becoming friends with somebody, and they can't do a gig, or they think you'd be great for a gig that they've got to hook up on, and so they send you an invitation like, hey man, I know Topps is looking for new artists, and I think you'd be really great. I think you should contact him. Here's my art director, here's the guy at Upper Deck, and he walks up to your table and says he really likes your work, and have you ever thought about doing sketch card work? That kind of stuff. And one thing then kind of leads to another. It's hard to get your first gig, but then it seems like once you get that, the door is like kicked open, and at least in my experience for now, the work just keeps coming in, and it's actually coming in almost faster than I can do it.
Nice.
But I have yet to say no to anybody when they've offered me something. I just take it and figure out how to make it work.
That's a good problem to have, to be too busy.
Yeah.
I will say that it does have its fair share of stress. As in, I have 12 days to complete an assignment that I haven't started yet. But
we better wrap this up then, so Caleb can get back to work.
That's right.
Well,
nothing inspires like a deadline, right?
Exactly.
I tell you what, though, I work great under pressure for that. If I didn't have that deadline looming over my head, it wouldn't motivate. I wouldn't be as motivated knowing myself to get the work done.
Yeah.
And so I want to do my best, and so I know how many pieces I have to do every day in order to make the deadline, and give myself the time I need to organize it, pack it, and ship it back. It's a good problem for me to have.
Nice. Well, you brought up a good segue. One, I wanted to talk about copyright for artists, writers, and creatives, something we discussed before. And I want to tie it into what you were just saying as far as having people come to your table. You told me a little story about how you had a run-in with Disney and how that actually worked to your advantage versus, to your disadvantage. We talked a little bit about, at one point there was a big issue in Artist Alley and Comic-Cons with them cracking down on fan-produced art, and we discussed that a little bit. If you want to touch on that briefly, you can, but I'm more concerned about the story you told me about Disney and how that worked to your advantage versus them saying, here's a cease and desist.
Well, a lot of times what you'll find in the world of this fan art, and when I say that, a lot of people have different ideas of what fan art is, right?
Define it for our audience, Caleb.
Yeah, at least from what me and my colleagues, and that means those I associate directly with. I'm not speaking for the entire Artist Alley community, right? And so the way that we define that, which I think is probably the most common amongst artists themselves, is fan art is literally drawing or painting a picture of a character that you don't own. I don't own Wolverine, but I can sit and I can draw it. And that's fan art. It's something that you create on your own. You can sell it, I suppose. Like you could sell the original without really any issues.
Yeah.
The issue is when you start producing images of characters you don't own. If I decide to make this Wolverine print, well, Marvel Comics, and by association, Disney owns Wolverine.
Right.
So am I allowed to make images and sell something that somebody else owns? And so really what it boils down to is there are passionate people on both sides of this idea.
Yes.
People who absolutely refuse to ever make an image of something that they themselves did not create. And that is admirable and perfectly acceptable. Obviously there's no issues with that. You created it. Go ahead and sell your heart out, man.
Yeah.
Then there are people, excuse me, I think a bug just flew in my mouth. That probably tells you something about what I'm about to say.
The Colombian fly. It came from the coffee.
Nice.
Right. That was so random.
About to say.
Right.
I was about to say. Yeah.
Oh man, no, it's but then you have people, and I myself am one of these people who produces fan art, right? And I love Star Wars. I love Disney stuff. I love The Watchmen. The Sandman. There's tons of things that I like. And so out of my love for it, I create something that is uniquely me, in my style, in the way that I would want it hanging on my wall. Mm-hmm. And I offer it, make it available. I'm not selling these by the thousands. Sure.
Right.
But from a legal perspective, am I in a position where I can sell that?
Yeah.
And make that money and not be at some point at risk of being told to stop that by law?
Sure.
The answer is no. I'm not in a position where I'm safe from that.
Right.
So, but neither is 98% of the Artist Alley.
Yeah, and for our audience who is not familiar with Artist Alley to convention, there would be no Artist Alley if it weren't for fan-based unauthorized art. These conventions would never have gotten as big as they were and transformed, and we're not going to go into a huge semantic issue on that. Google it, look it up. But getting back to the issue where Disney approached you.
Right. So I was at a convention, and I have a set of Disney villains, a little trio on my table. And
which are awesome, by the way.
Oh, thank you. This woman approaches the table and is just captivated by it, and she's just fawning over it and says, like, I really love these. And she's like, I'd like to get this set. So I buy them, and or I don't buy them. She buys them. I sign them. It's still morning, guys.
That's all right. That's why we have coffee.
And, exactly. And she says, I'm going to hang these in my office. I'm an art director at Disney, and I really love the way that you've done these. And thank you for, breathing a new life into this, for me. And I was very humbled by that and excited at the same time that, an art director at Disney stopped by my table because she was caught by characters that she knows and loves and works with. Right. And
that's huge.
And yeah, it was great. And did she personally have the power to tell me no, to not sell that? No, because again, she doesn't even own those characters. That would have to be a lawyer from Disney who would have to come by. And most of the time at these shows, and I'm talking, I've done a lot of shows over the past 5 years, a lot. And I have yet to see a lawyer walk around at any of these shows handing out cease and desist letters to artists who are selling property that's not their own. Yeah. I'm not saying that it's not going to ever happen.
Sure.
But there are always rumors that, somebody's going to get shut down. They're going to be slapping C&D letters all over the place. And I've never seen it. I've been to the big ones. I've been to New York. I've been to the Chicago shows. I've been to, the only one that I haven't been to is San Diego. Yeah. And that's, I haven't heard of it happening there either.
Right.
So I don't know that there's always people who are being spooked because they're trying to stir a pot, I think. But but again, I'm not saying that it won't ever happen.
Yeah, and I think when we had coffee before, I think you mentioned also like you did it well versus some of the other artists who are not doing it well, not paying tribute to the character well, or they're drawing the character in a not so spectacular light. Whether it's
like if you're drawing a lewd image of Cinderella and the Disney person walks by, you're destroying their character, so to speak.
Which is why nobody will ever see one of my student projects. I don't know if you remember the Whitechapel project. It was like, no.
Oh, yes.
I put that up on YouTube, and I'm like, no, I took that down, and no one will ever see that.
There are certain things that are good in this world.
It's still good. Yeah, it's just going to get me sued into the Stone Age.
Sure. Well, again, it would probably be more of a take that down and don't ever show it.
Yeah.
But that's usually the first place they start if they're going to do something like that. So yeah, I just think if you're destroying somebody's property, through defamation or parody in a way that's like that, they can tell you to stop.
Yeah.
Parody is a weird line too, because you can get away with a lot of things from parody, but there were parodies of Mickey Mouse that were shut down by Disney too. So
yes, there was one famous one. Google it. The guy literally got sued into the Stone Age.
So it's like, at what point do you decide that that's a hill worth dying on? You can make another painting. You can, I'm an illustrator, so I'm fairly pragmatic about these kinds of things. I might love the paintings that I do, but at the end of the day, they are just images that I made. I can always make another one. It's not like, my whole life's work is shot because I can't sell this particular piece. Well, then you're not much of an artist, I guess. You're
right.
You're an idealist, and so get out there and make another painting, make another thing. Is that painting or that image that you made so valuable to you that it's going to prevent you from doing anything else the rest of your life? Well, if so, then hang it up now and go be something else. But otherwise, make something new.
Yeah, keep creating. Caleb, talk to us a little bit about staying on task, meeting deadlines. You're also a musician. You're saying, you've got all these projects, you've got all these balls in the air you're juggling. Mm-hmm. What do you do to help discipline yourself? What tools do you use to help keep yourself focused and meet your deadlines? And also, you've got a family, stay on task and spend time with your wife and family.
Well, the first trick is in juggling is to throw the balls really high in the air so that they don't come down for a while. I think so. I think the biggest thing for me is I have a space where I can work. I'm sitting in my studio. You can see some of my unorganized stuff here and right there. There's a TV behind me, which I don't use very much. But I'm in my studio, and I have a space where I can, if I need to, I can shut a door and tune out the world. And I can either fully engage in distraction activities in my studio, or I can turn those off and I can be focused, right? But I'm surrounded by things in my studio, and I'm looking around that inspire me, that I put in here because they remind me of the things that I love, and they remind me of the things that helped fuel my creativity and continue to fuel my creativity. And so I guess the first step for me was taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. That even though I love these things and drawing is fun, it's also a real big pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And there's challenges. And every drawing I approach has some challenge that I have to overcome. And every single piece I do has flaws in it. There's never going to be a perfect piece. And so I don't try to make it absolutely perfect. I try to finish it. And I try to finish it to the level that I am comfortable finishing it with. Sometimes I'm very cognizant of the errors. Other times I discover them later and I'm like, yeah, why didn't I see that?
Right. I was drawing a sketch card the other day myself, and I gave Judge Dredd like 4 fingers, and and I didn't give him a thumb. He was holding the gun, and I was like, damn it. But at some point you've got to finish it. You've got to stop going back to it. You got to move on to the next thing.
And sometimes the piece works in spite of the flaws. And I'm not sure if Judge having no thumb, works as well. I'd have to see it. But,
somebody complimented me on it on Facebook. They were like, great job. And I was like, okay, so somebody didn't see the error that I saw.
See, well, there you go. But now you've put it out there, Scott.
I know. It's flawed. I'm going to have to discount that card.
So I think the first step, again, like I said, is just taking it seriously, realizing that in spite of how fun it is, and you hear this all the time, you'll hear people be like, oh, well, you get to do fun stuff all day. You get to draw for a living. And it's like, sometimes I just want to grab people by the shoulders and look them in the eyes and burn out their eyes with my eye lasers, when they say things like that.
I kill you till you're dead.
Right, exactly. Because it's physically draining and emotionally draining to sit and draw for 6-7 hours. And typically when I'm working on sketch cards, I'll have a little break here and there, but I'm sitting at my desk for 6 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes longer. going over these cards and working on them. I've got so many I have to do a day, and literally my life is on hold while I'm doing these. I don't get to any commissions that I might have, and my list is growing and of that. And so I have people waiting, and they're very patient. And they're very nice to me about that, but I still owe them things.
Sure.
And they've paid me. I have a responsibility to do the work, and I am going to do that work. But when a professional gig comes in, those private commissions get set aside. You have to do the work, and the longer I take to do the professional work, the longer the people have to wait. So there's the commission plate, right? There's that ball is in the air, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Then you have the professional gigs, the Star Wars, the Walking Dead, the different things like that. Those have contracts that I've signed. I am obligated to do this work. And if I don't complete this stuff on time, I probably won't get another gig because I'm in violation of the contract. And artists are notorious, and we have a bad reputation for being unprofessional with our deadlines. And the first way to actually being able to get more gigs, believe it or not, turn your work in on time. Turn it in early, even.
Fulfill your contract. Yeah.
I just my Walking Dead stuff wasn't due for another a little bit over 3 weeks from now, and I turned it in yesterday. It's done. So I'm done. Now I'm on to the next thing. I'm trying to get these things done well in advance, if possible, so I can get back to the things that I need to complete for other people. Right. So that's the professional ball is in the air. Musician, I teach music lessons a couple nights a week for some students. So I have that too. They show up at a certain time. It's not like I can go hide, right. They show up to my studio. I teach them how to play piano or guitar, and they send them home. And so I've got that in the air. And then I'm a dad and a husband. So, my kids would like to see me occasionally. And my wife would like me to, do the dishes occasionally or throw some laundry in, So there's real human things that I have to do as well.
Tell me a little bit about that. Do you structure your time accordingly to say, okay, I'm on the clock from this time and this time, but after 5 o'clock, it's family time, or is it just a day-to-day thing?
Well, it's kind of, my household is a little bit different. Since both my wife and we work from home, I mentioned I teach music lessons. I teach 2 nights a week. My wife teaches 4 nights a week. And then we have our 2 kids. So we start our music lesson time from like 3 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night.
Oh, okay.
So it means our mornings are relatively, I'll say it like this, free. Our mornings are free, but they're not really free because my wife and I decided to homeschool our daughter, because if she went to public school, and there's wonderful public schools in our town, but if she went there, we wouldn't be seeing much of her, because by the time she would be getting home, we would be starting to work. So she'd be gone all morning.
Right.
We don't start teaching till the evenings. She would go to her grandparents' house until 9 o'clock at night, and we'd see her for a little bit, and then she's off to bed to get up and go to school the next. So we decided to homeschool her, which is great because she's here, and we're in. We get to kind of focus on the things that we really think are important during that. But at the same time, it absorbs time and energy that we could normally put into other things. So there are a lot of little things in our lives that will literally just suck all the time out of you if you let them. Mm-hmm. And so we have to, on some level, be very structured with what we're doing. So like I said, I had mentioned that I've got work to do, right? But I've budgeted time for our conversation here, however long that takes.
Right.
And then I know how many cards I have to do today.
How many cards do you typically do in a day?
It depends. Like, I have X number of cards. I divide that by how many days I have in my contract, and that tells me right there. And so if I can squeeze in an extra 1 or 2 cards that on top of the minimum for the day, that's great. If I can't, well, then I don't worry about it. But if I can get them done faster than my deadline, it's great. So I think I have to do 3 cards a day for the starting today in order to get them done on time.
Nice.
And that's just on time. So if I can do 4 a day, I can squeeze, an extra couple of days out of that.
Right. Then you get back to your commission work a lot quicker.
Correct. Like last night, I have a wonderful client who I met at a Dragon Con in Atlanta this year, and he commissioned me to do a Ming the Merciless. And
nice. So like the classic Flash Gordon film Ming, or the comic book Ming, or
based on on Max's version of Ming from the movie, but he doesn't have a likeness to Max. So, but he's got that. He looks great. I had such a good time drawing him last night. So
cool.
He's ready for paint, but he'll sit for a couple days until I have time to paint.
Yeah.
So at least I try to squeeze in work everywhere I can, especially if I'm in the mode already. Like for drawing, just done a bunch, and I'm like, ooh, I'm still feeling the vibe. So,
what do you do when you're not in the mood?
Work anyways.
Yeah. No, I mean, how do you have techniques or exercises, or is it just like just sit down at the table, just start scribbling?
For me, it's just I got work to do. I don't have time for inspiration. I got to sit, and I just got to sit and work. And the more you work, the less you need that inspirational jolt to get you moving, because I draw every damn day. I am always drawing anymore, and I don't find it difficult to get into that mode because it's like it's a habit. It's something that I just do. It's like it's like making a cup of coffee. It's not really hard. I don't need to be in the mood to make it. I just need to go make coffee, or I need to go make a sandwich or something. It's just something I do, right? But when you're not used to drawing, when you're not drawing every day, it can feel like you need this jolt of inspiration to get you moving. Like, I need to watch something that makes me feel emotionally connected to the universe, and then I can paint. And I remember, I feel like it's attributed to Charles Bukowski, but I don't remember if he said it or not. But it's always sat with me, and you'll forgive the phrase, but I think it's something along the lines of inspiration is for pussies. The rest of us have work to do.
Yeah.
And that's great. And I really feel like that is one of the most honest and true things that can be said about a working artist, is you don't have time to sit and wait for that fickle finger of fate to just touch you, and suddenly you're going to paint the next, whatever big painting is out there, or make the next big illustration, or this is the one that will get me a gig with whoever I want to gig with.
Right.
And it just doesn't happen. It happens through repetition and through habit and through discipline and through guts and sweat and blood. And
I think I saw an inspirational video, and I watch a lot of them on YouTube, and one of them's got a little clip of Will Smith saying that everybody has talent, but it takes hours and hours of pounding on your craft to essentially get where you want to be. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Yep. Sure. Yeah. If you don't, you have to work. Mm-hmm. And your growth is never going to happen as an artist. Your growth isn't going to come from one big painting, and then suddenly you start your next big one, and now you've grown as an artist. The grunt work of sketching, the grunt work of looking and drawing everything around you. How's that bicycle behind you work? I'm looking at Dom's bicycle back there, and he's got, the little basket.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this, like, how does this all get put together, right? I'm fascinated with things, and I look at Scott's room, and I'm like, he's got the bookshelves with the toys, and I'm like, is that an Indiana Jones hat back there? And that looks like a dragon, and there's all these different things in there. And as I look at this, so how does that work? So if I was to draw all of these things, even if I want to get better at drawing people, yes, I should draw people all the time, but drawing a big painting and spending hours on a painting isn't going to make me a better artist. It's going to be those little sketches that I do. It's going to be the work in between the big paintings that gets me better.
Right.
And that's the grunt work. That's the stuff you can't, wait for inspiration for. You just have to pick up your book and draw. Just draw. It doesn't matter what it is. Draw a cup. Draw the coffee cup. Draw your mom. Draw. Well, get your mom's permission first. She might not like that. Well, just whatever. It's kind of irrelevant, but it's the discipline and training your mind to work, and to stop seeing it as a magical gift of the gods, and seeing it as a very technical and practical skill.
Yeah. Excellent. Very cool. Dom, do you have any other questions you wanted to ask Caleb? You were kind of silent.
Taking it all in, man. Taking it all in. Everything you said resonates with me. It all resonates with me. I'm a writer, so you got to write every day, every single damn day. Yep. And if you're just waiting for the muses to whisper in your ear, you'll
never get anything done.
Never going to pick up your pencil,
Yep. I mean,
or whatever. You know,
inspiration is changed by having a cup of coffee,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and your emotional state is altered by the stupidest things. And so to depend on those things to make your livelihood, so to speak, or your to put all of your creative eggs in the emotional basket is about the most foolish thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's where we all start. It's how we start.
It is.
It used to be where I lived.
Yeah.
And everything you're saying, that is how I evolved from being the wishy-washy, want to be a writer, to being a working writer.
Yep.
And you know,
those are two different things.
Money every week.
Yeah. Well, and
yeah.
I call them squirrels, basically. If you get stuck with the squirrels, you can get so wrapped up in the emotional. Oh, okay, I've got to have inspiration, and then you get distracted. Well, maybe if I go for a walk, maybe if I get a cup of coffee, maybe if I take a shower, maybe if I watch Netflix, and the next thing you know, you're not drawing, you're not doing it, because the squirrels have distracted you into feeling, oh, I need to be inspired. No, you just don't want to commit to sitting down and staring at that blank piece of paper.
Exactly. And you talk yourself into believing that the Netflix will just be in the background and the NPR playing in the background. You know, you're just bullshitting yourself.
Yep, that's all it is. It's just nonsense. And the disciplined mind knows better. But it's getting your mind to quiet, practicing quietness, practicing focus on something for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and the more that we live in our devices, the more we live in our cell phones, and the more we live in those things that are instant hits of dopamine, you know, ooh, somebody liked my photo, bam, now you're obsessed with just getting likes, you know, or now you're just obsessed with the next quippy and clever thing that somebody posted on Facebook or whatever social media place you're on. You know, it becomes about how do I get people to look at me rather than about how about you just work? How about how about you just put something out there that's actually real? How about you exercise creativity and communication with others by creating an image or writing a wonderful piece of prose or poetry, or how about you sculpt something? How about you do anything that exercises that creativity? Write a song, dance, do whatever, but do it. Stop farting around.
Yeah, and when you do it, put it out there, but don't be obsessed with putting it out there. You know, you can put the cart before the horse. I want to put everything out there, but I don't have anything to put out there. You got to do it first.
It's the musician who wants to be a rock star but doesn't want to actually do the work to be a musician or have the credibility to be the rock star. It's like, I'm in a band, but you know,
only knows three chords.
They're a egomaniac. They're not a musician, right? And they need that. They need that that attention, right? And so it's do the work, be humble, be assertive, don't take no for an answer, and make them pay attention to you. I mean, that's been my philosophy. I don't ask permission for things anymore. I stopped asking years ago. Like, oh, can I be a part of this? Can I be a part of that? I assume the answer is yes. And I act as if that's the case. And if it's not, and I get in trouble for it, then I ask forgiveness.
It's easier to get forgiveness than it is permission.
Permission
that's right. Yeah.
Because I'm subservient to somebody else when I ask for permission.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for this gatekeeper to let me through. Whereas if I just walk through and act like I belong, even if I don't, most people won't think twice.
Yeah.
They're not gonna stop you.
No. And now I'm not talking about going in and robbing a bank or using this for will.
Sure.
You know, I'm just nobody. I'm sorry I stole your money. Forgive me.
Ron, but you're just talking about acting like a free man.
Yeah.
Hey, Lucasfilm, I was just wanted to see The Last Jedi. You don't have to kick me off Skywalker Ranch. Seriously, I belong here.
You don't need handcuffs. Okay, there they go.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Caleb said it was okay.
Right. Caleb said. Oh,
I'm gonna get a T-shirt. I'm gonna put Caleb said on the T-shirt. Caleb said. Then just put a picture of me. Yeah.
Like, you know, eating a hot dog or
in
something.
In handcuffs, walking out of Skywalker Ranch, looking like on the back.
Right. There we are.
Nice. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. We're kind of wrapping things up. Don, you got anything else you wanna hit Caleb with?
I wanted to ask you because you sort of gave me like a natural transition to this. I wanted to ask. So, how do you brought up briefly, having a website, blogging, and doing social media and things like that. We've got a lot of struggling creatives who watch our show. So we're asking, how do you propose people venture out into that venue? Getting their own website, doing social media and things like that.
There are
both Scott and I have websites. We do social media and things like that. But a lot of our audience are young, and young in the business.
Sure.
So they don't.
Well, there's a lot of places that you can go and get free websites. There's like Weebly is one of those places. Wix is one of those places where they give you some templates and you can just kind of create your own thing. You have to know no coding or anything. Most of those places have tutorial videos of how to put together, or they even have templates where you literally just double click and insert your content there. And they're great. I actually use Weebly for my website, and you can have them. You can pay Weebly, and they take their little logo off the website. You can use your own URL name, so you can have like your own .com or .whatever, and use that. It's not like a calebking.weebly.com kind of thing.
Right.
Or you can use their free service, and just like, calebking.weebly.com. It doesn't matter. The idea is especially at the beginning, save money. Don't spend money on unnecessary things at the beginning.
Right.
If you don't have a business card website, well, that's kind of ridiculous. Just get a free website. Don't use DeviantArt for your website. The credibility of DeviantArt is more of a working sketchbook, not an actual public portfolio. Get a website where it's just you. It's just you. You can have a DeviantArt, but don't use that as your main website. It's lazy, and it doesn't make you stand out. And in fact, there are so many rabbit trails to other artists there that you don't keep anyone's attention. So don't use that.
You want the focus to be on you.
Yes, right. I mean, as much as we like to think we're not narcissists, we are, and but we want to keep that attention on them.
Sure.
Or on ourselves, not on them. Excuse me.
Well, when you're in business, and we are trying to, condition people to think of themselves as artists, but also as businesses, right?
You have to be. Yeah.
It's all about focusing on the business, on the brand.
There's the artist side where you can be that creative, touchy-feely, space case if you need to be. But then there's the side that says, look, we've got 5 shows coming up, 10 shows, whatever it is, and we've got to have work for these shows. We've got to get to the show. Are we driving? Are we flying? Are we carpooling with somebody else? I have to be organized. You have to have 2 personalities in this. You have to have that art side, and you have to have the manager side. And the manager side has to be organized so that the art person can thrive. If the manager is unorganized, the artist is unorganized. But if at least the manager side of things is organized and the art,
right,
with one goes with both. But the artist can't be organized and the manager unorganized. It just doesn't work that way.
Gotcha. Well, my squirrels are starting to yell at me. You're starting to freeze up a little bit. So I think we need to wrap up today's show. Again, Caleb, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You got any shows coming up? Anything you want to plug?
I will be at the New York Comic-Con this October. I think it's the weekend of the 5th through the 8th, I think, perhaps. And then I'd have to look at my schedule. But after that, then I'm at Spooky Empire in Orlando at the end of the month.
Nice. What's your website, Caleb?
My website is thecalebking.com, as in I'm the Caleb King.
As opposed to
there are many others, but I am the.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for joining us on the show today, and thank you all for watching. This is Monkeys Drinking Beans. I'm Scott Pyburn.
Hey, I'm Doug DeBellis.
I'm Caleb.
And we'll
Thanks,
see you
Caleb.
next time.
Thanks, guys.